Welcome, Cosmo.
Yeah, baby.
It's so good to have you here
In
or
sunny
there.
Victoria, BC.
Yeah, in sunny Victoria, VC, and I am still in, I don't know what I am. I'm not in social isolation because I have Court Vox trotting about, and Stephanie Joe is in and out. She's staying nearby, but we are practicing not being with others.
Mm,
Talk about othering. People are really othering each other right now in ways that
yeah.
are so big. I have to go to the grocery store here, and and I'm in Maui. I don't know if I said that. I have not come home to New York. I've not come home to New York yet because it's bad in New York. So we decided to hunker down here and work from here as opposed to home. But at any rate, go to the grocery store here, and everything is 6 feet apart and all that. But it's even more than that. I notice, we're here talking about the orgasm gap and why straight women aren't getting satisfied. But there's also this piece of the human gap right now,
Mm-hmm.
that we don't smile at each other and that people look away as if they're going to get the virus simply by saying hi, how you doing? And you watch people, even when I go walking, there's this big like space that people give, and yeah, I get that. That's the 6 feet apart. I always say thank you when people move rather than I move, but it's the lack of the smile. It's the lack of the eye contact.
Mm.
And I hope that people, when they're watching this, are you noticing that in your life? Are you noticing a connection gap, a human gap, and how hard that is?
Mm. Yeah, I think it's like a smile would be an invitation normally, like to come closer or something. So I noticed that too. I mean, in some ways, me and my sister were laughing about it. We were like, all of a sudden, everyone understands personal space. Like,
Right.
I'm like, there's a part of it that I love, and that just like, I went to Canadian Tire, and I go to we've gone out to a few stores that we need to get supplies and come back home, and there's nobody creeping, breathing down my neck in the lineup, which I have this thing about people standing behind me, and it's like an OCD thing of like someone right there, and so I'm just like, there are certain aspects of it I'm loving, and I'm also the guy that's like smiling at the same time as people
Right.
walk by and kind of
Right.
acknowledging that we're in this big thing together. So yeah, I think that probably the smile is about create like people being afraid to create an invitation.
Right. No, I'm sure you're right. It's noticing that I've had that seems different than
Hmm.
social interaction in the past with strangers.
Yeah.
It was like the 6 degrees of separation have gotten like a football field, even if we're really close to each other. So
Yeah.
we're getting better at doing, I just want to acknowledge to our audience, we're getting better at this. The Zoom thing, we're much better than we've been. And there are already 33 people on this call and climbing. And I want to talk a little bit about the rules of the game. So nobody can see you. You're invisible, basically, but you can type into the chat box, and we can see your questions, and we welcome your questions. We also welcome your comments. And you'll see a photo of Stephanie Joe, who works with us. And if we skip a comment by accident, she's going to help us top things. And so that's all that's excitement. And yes, hi to everybody. So what has been in the news has been something I know, Cosmo, that we at Back to the Body know about. And that's the orgasm gap. It's known
Mm-hmm.
as the orgasm gap. And there's been several studies about the orgasm gap. Do you want to explain to people what it is and the hierarchy of orgasm satisfaction in the world? Do you feel like you can do that?
I mean, I definitely know the concept. I think the hierarchy you've got down. So I think what it is like, so which way are we going? Are we going to the people that are having the most pleasure
Most pleasure.
first?
Who wins the pleasure
I
race?
I think it's heterosexual men are winning.
Bing, 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 bing.
Right.
Yes,
And I have,
heterosexual men.
I was definitely like contemplating this obviously pre coming here today, and I have a new piece because I think that the data, what it shows, and let's go down the list in hierarchy, of
We'll
course,
just do
but
the list first.
check back with me about my thoughts on heterosexual men and actually like true fulfillment, but that's another story altogether. So
Okay.
we got heterosexual men at the top that they're getting it, however we want to say.
However they're getting it, they're
they
getting it.
and they also have a connection, like a noticeable understanding and connection to their arousal, I think is what the study actually shows, right?
Yes, they have a
Yeah.
noticeable, like if they're shown, so in how they studied this was they literally wired people from their genitals to, I guess, their brain and showed them sexy images. And they asked them like to hit a bell, bing, 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 if they felt arousal in their bodies.
Or like not even traditionally sexy images too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, do you like,
Yeah.
here's an ice cream cone. Do you feel arousal? Pamela would be hitting bing, bing,
Bing,
bing.
bing, bing. Yeah.
So men, straight men, and then gay men, and then bisexual men all had a very strong connection to their penis. And we'll get to your questions. They're there. We see them. So they all had a strong connection. They could identify their arousal. And then who's next? Can you guess?
I think gay men are next.
No, yeah, gay men. Yes, I said that.
So
And
heterosexual men, gay men, and then queer women,
bisexual men.
bisexual men. Right. Okay. So men are taking up the top three.
Yes.
Right. Isn't that funny?
They're mansplaining.
Or not so. Yeah. Okay. So we've got bisexual men, and then queer women, bisexual women, and heterosexual women. Is that the
lesbian women, bisexual women, and then straight women.
Straight
Hence
women, right?
our title: Why Straight Women Don't Get No Satisfaction.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Lucy's question really actually even points to that.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Where a urologist told her husband that if she takes more than 30 minutes to arouse or orgasm, she's dysfunctional. I guess what's true is that your urologist is dysfunctional. Okay, it kind of reminds me, if you watch the YouTube video about vulvas, and maybe Stephanie Joe, you can pop the YouTube video on there on why I hate my vagina during this talk for those who might have missed it. We had two plastic surgeons, like gynecological plastic surgeons, who were stumbling over the word vulva. I guess, what should I call it? Vulva. That we have a terrible disconnection in the medical world.
Mm-hmm.
Even urologists, gynecologists, and gynosurgeons with the true understanding of female arousal. So would you like to talk a little bit about female arousal and actually what it takes and why women may have trouble getting satisfaction, which is sort of kind of right here, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great vulnerable post there, just saying that someone from the outside world is telling you about how your body should work. So first off, I just put up that's wrong because
Right, that's wrong.
I
But
mean,
just be clear,
yeah.
wrong. Mm-hmm.
And so, why that's wrong is that we know from plenty of years of experience, Pamela more so, and me as well. And obviously I don't have a vulva, but I work with people with vulvas. And the truth is that everyone's different. Some people can, have a full climactic clitoral orgasm in 45 seconds. And some people take a while to warm up. And, those people often, maybe 45 minutes or an hour later might be the ones that have, 20 back to back to back to back after that first hour, but just take a little bit longer for the bodies to warm up. And they might come in even, to a retreat saying, feeling deflated, feeling broken, feeling like their body is doing something wrong, right? And however we want to frame that. And what we end up, seeing is this like massive opening where when someone is given the space, given the time to explore arousal, that there's nothing wrong with them, that their body's not broken. They just need a little bit more space.
Oh, so I'm just going to say arousal takes time. Arousal is not fast food, right? Arousal is kind of like, we serve it back to the body. It's kind of like a gourmet meal, right? There's an appetizer. You may even start with an amuse-bouche. Is that what you call it? Like there's an amuse-bouche, which is like the conversation before the touch, which begins to arouse you, right? And maybe it's the sisterhood or being with the safe port. At home, if you're not at one of our retreats, it could be a sexy note that your partner sends you. Or anticipation that on this day and night, something hot is going to happen. I've been experimenting a lot with notes in my own sessions. Yes, people, I have sessions. Just so you know, I'm not only the president, I'm a client, okay? Because I believe this is a lifestyle. And so my arousal may begin with little notes that I may find that begins to heat me up well before I have touch. Arousal may begin with putting on intentional clothing for some women. Like for me, not saying this is for you. For me, it's maybe the shower. It's getting my body ready to be intimate is a part of the turn on. Having, for me, intentional clothing, which sometimes for me is as simple as thigh-high black stockings or net stockings, make me feel sexy. For you, it could be a ripped t-shirt or wearing your partner's shirt. It doesn't necessarily have to be full-blown lingerie, but it can be. Can begin to preheat what I call the oven. Right. So it's like you're not putting the pizza in a cold oven and wanting it to be crispy. So we as women who do have long arousal legs or a long arousal tail, which means that by the end of it, it's like this huge explosion. We need a lot of foreplay. It's called foreplay in the regular world. It could also be, erotic anticipation, preheating the oven, and it's normal. And some women like to come into a erotic container with a hotter oven, than other women, right? And there should be no blaming or shaming around how long it takes your oven to get ready to really cook. And I think what we find it back to the body is that women, we do one day, it's just arousal. So that women really even get to know what their arousal is. I mean, don't you find that, Cosmo, that some women don't even know what arousal feels like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I loved what you said specifically around the shower too, because we talk about heating, you know, warming up. Well, there is actually an element of physical warming up as well that plays a part. So whether that's through movement or through a shower, that like physically getting your body warm. Um, and and then in regards to different, you know, different clients not necessarily knowing what arousal is, and even sometimes, like, you know, being socialized to kind of be annoyed with it, like, oh well, that's just taking too long, like not even necessarily that information is coming from outside, but is actually built internally into, you know, different women's psyche, to say, oh well, if it's taking that long, like there must be something wrong with me, or like, geez, just sometimes even somebody else figure it out, you know, like if you slow things down to try and like build arousal, they'll be like, well, what are we even doing here? It's so subtle, it's so slow that it really needs to be like tasted with a different part of the tongue. You know, it's
Yeah.
not it's not just like the same thing as maybe your regular masturbation routine, if you even have one, or but it's this like very slow, like delicate thing that, as Pamela talked about, can be started way before touch. It can be started with like the thoughts, you know.
Yeah, and we're working on a product, as you know, Cosmo, right now, and we're breaking it up into 4 parts.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
the first part is mind,
Mm-hmm.
mind. And so, what are we doing for our partners? And all the partners of all the sexes. What are we doing to wake up the mind? What are we doing to build anticipation?
Mm-hmm.
Anticipation is the turn on. And I'm noticing a comment, you know, well, hetero men don't hesitate to purchase sexual services, where women find it more difficult to access the service, even if they have sexual problems to address. Look how much effort you make to convince women they're entitled to access pleasure and power, and men don't need much convincing to step up. So, you know, yeah, I'm going to say yes and to that. Yes, providing sexual support is something new for women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in my book, I'm reaching. In my book, I'm learning to be a promoter a little bit. In my book, Shameless, that you can get on Rodale, I talk about my journey to find this stuff, right? Like I couldn't find sexual services for women 10 years ago. I went looking where men look for sexual services, because there wasn't anything directed at women. But here's the good news: that has changed. That landscape has changed, and getting the word out to women, having women support other women, taking shame away from women to seek out services is really
Mm-hmm.
important. And so, yes, Back to the Body Sensuous Retreats for Women does exist now as a safe container. And, you know, Cosmo runs the Apollo Project, which is for men, mostly straight men, to come. Because I say mostly straight men, because the practitioners are mostly female. So it's men who are wanting to explore themselves with a female practitioner. And at Back to the Body, while we have bisexual and lesbian women there, mostly open to men touching them. And it's not always easy either to get men to step up
Mm.
and ask for support and help. I think we all get very embarrassed when we think that there's more than there is, and we want support in a safe place to get it. And you're absolutely right, it's harder for women, but watching Cosmo also fill his program, it's not so easy. There is a Cosmo.
Yeah, and I think it might be for different reasons, some different reasons, and some of the same reasons. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, interestingly enough, I think the sexual, like, like, receiving pleasure type bit is more, naturally ingrained into men. I think that bit, but the coming together in group and talking about your feelings, that's a hurdle. Like that's a big hurdle. So the there may be different things that are hurdles, and we do see this with women on retreat as well, that sometimes coming together in sisterhood is a massive piece, that just like you know, being in community for us is something that we're not all exposed to all the time. So yes, it's a big hurdle for men, and maybe it's the difference between what would classically be offered as sex work for men and what is offered as a therapeutic erotic exploration. So
Correct.
they're just kind of different buckets, and so it's like a new bucket for men to even think of. Like, oh, I can go and realize my sexual awakening, but in a therapeutic way.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the human species is struggling with our sexuality, and that is just true. And I think some of the things that hold women back, I think some of the things that hold women back around this is the inability. Do you hear all the background noise that just started on my end, or is it not so terrible?
It's not so terrible.
Oh, great. I'm staying at a kind of like a retirement community, and everybody has fled because of the virus, and they've decided that today is a good day as an essential service to mow the lawn right now.
Yeah,
So
I can't hear that.
that's what's happening. So and she's locked herself out, so she can't shut the other window. It's okay. Um, I think a part of what is happening for women is that because we are such givers, right? So what women are learning through the programs of Back to the Body is how to receive. And you know what? You would think that'd be easy. Here's a cookie. Here's a cookie. No, thank you. I don't need the cookie. You have the cookie. And as I told you, we're like developing this brand new product for women to work with at home. And we've come up with some new terms, they're not new terms, but terms that we're beginning to use, such as being a self-seeker. Being a self-seeker. And what is a self-seeker? What does that sound like to you? Being a self-seeker. What image does that bring to you?
There's the lawnmower.
What was that?
I said I just heard the lawnmower.
Uh-huh. And
So
people, if you're in the audience, what is self-seeker?
self-seeker.
Looking for something inside yourself. Yes, that could be a definition of a self-seeker. Another definition, and when you feel the popping, Cosmo, we were actually trying to find new language for learning how to give to yourself.
Okay, I see where you're going with that.
All of the language around women or anybody giving to themselves before other people were words like narcissistic, greedy,
yeah, selfish, self-centered.
They were all self-centered, piggish, hoggish.
Rather than like embodied activist.
Exactly. And so buried in this long list was self-seeking. And I was like, wow, look, we found one, being a self-seeker. And I was reminded of how many of you out there saw the movie, oh God, now it's jumping from my brain. It's about a Chinese family and about a Chinese woman, the Good Luck Club. Good Luck Club.
Joy Luck Club.
Joy Luck Club. Thank you. The Joy Luck Club. And in the Joy Luck Club, towards the end, when she's trying to reconcile her divorce and wanting to keep, I think, the house, and her mother references her cousin and a dinner they just had. And her mother said, your cousin, when we passed the platter of crab, she took the best piece of crab for herself. But you didn't. You took the worst piece of crap for yourself. And it's like teaching women to learn to take the best piece of crap. If you want to be orgasmic, if you want to be sexually alive, you need to learn sometimes to ask for the best piece of crap. Like you need to say, yes, your urologist is wrong. I need an hour of you touching my body before you penetrate me. I need you to use this vibrator. I need to be kissed. I need anticipation. And making that a metaphor for yourselves if you're watching this. How often do you ask for the best piece of crap?
And yeah, it is hard. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, go ahead.
It's like, you know, and I'm seeing, so, okay, there's two parts here, right? And they're both difficult in regards to, I guess in this, you know, let's just say for this time here, we're talking about getting those that are down on the ladder, up the ladder a bit, right? So it's like,
Right.
how do we help people like crabs in a bucket? You know, we were talking about the best piece of crab. Let's get the crabs want to get out of the bucket or up the rung, up the ladder. So there's two parts. One is, and they're both education based. One is educating your partner in what you want, and the other is educating yourself in knowing what you want.
Yeah.
So there's two parts, right? It's not all the outside world not touching you right or not giving you the time, but it's some of that. And then there's the other part, which is figuring out what you even like, figuring out what you want, figuring out how to ask for what you want, carving out space, you know,
Yes.
being vulnerable enough to stay in that subtlety, that quiet. You know, it's like, I mean, it really is like as quiet as meditation.
Yes. Not like lawnmowers. And so I just tried to adjust the sound. You need to adjust your light. We're just
I'm like,
a little. So, you know, I'm curious. I mean, and the group is joining, the group that is with us keeps getting bigger. What I'm curious about, those you're watching, is like, you know, where do you ask for the best piece of crab, or how hard it is? How hard is it for you to tell your partner what you want? Dana writes, when you want to, but your partner doesn't want to, or they want to next time and your libido is down, or not being comfortable asking for what you want. Feelings of judgment, even though the judgment comes from within. And yes, right on, Cosmo, so many women don't know what they want or like because they've never been asked, or they've never asked themselves. And so, yes, it's super hard to tell our partners. And like, why is that? Like, why is it so hard for us to tell our partners? Are we worried about their egos? You know, why is it so hard? So I'm going to ask you a question, not as a practitioner, though it will work as a practitioner as well. But I'm just going to put you out there as a man.
Yeah,
okay,
great.
Cosmo, you're holding the man cage.
Yeah.
I imagine, how does it feel for you when a woman actually tells you what makes her feel good?
Well, I mean, I'll just be totally honest. There's like the answer, and then there's an honest answer. And the honest
Okay.
answer is most of the time, based on the training I've had and the work I do, is amazing. And some of the time, it's, yeah, the ego flares up. So like I occupy both demographics in that, you know, at one point of my life and for a good portion of my life, you know, I was in a relationship where my partner wasn't necessarily getting fulfilled. I wasn't necessarily getting fulfilled. And, you know, I might've been having orgasm and she wasn't. And so then I did all this training and work on myself and got to the point where now it's like, you know, attentiveness, caring, inquiry, asking questions, learning are all at the forefront. And yet I still come across like, sure, ego flare ups around, you know, not just knowing exactly what to do. And that's the thing that we're really like, we have to get down to the bottom of, is that we can't expect our partners to know. And we as partners can't expect to know, even with someone we've been with for years. It can change day to day, the morning versus afternoon sex versus evening touching, right? So it just is about being open to inquiry and noticing when, like, you know, there'll be times even now where just yesterday it was like, I mean, this is a funny one and I'll just share this. And my wife and I are both sex educators, and I look to see if she's there, because not that I'm worried about sharing, because she's fine with me sharing, but just to kind of have a giggle, is she says, you know, we had this little window of time, and it was like, okay, the Brussels sprouts are in the oven, the timer's on for 20 minutes, and the truth is sometimes you are on a timer, you know, and so that just happens, and it doesn't mean we have to go anywhere, but we want to explore pleasure for 20 minutes. We have this little window. Okay, Brussels sprouts are in the oven. I'm the only one that can lift that roasting pan out of the oven. It's a big cast iron roasting pan. So we go down there, and basically, like, I turn around to get undressed, and I look back, and she's already got coconut oil there and is wide, you know, ready to go. And she just looks at me and she goes, "Talk dirty to me." And I just froze. I was like, fuck, I was just cutting up Brussels sprouts and now I got to talk dirty. And I had this moment where I was like, you know, I kind of laughed, and she looked at me and she said, "What? You're so comfortable talking dirty." And I was like, "I don't know. I just froze inside." And I was like, "Can you help, you know, can you help me with where you want to go with this?" And so she kind of dove in and took the reins for a minute. And so that there definitely is like a sharing of, I guess, power dynamic that can come into play. So if both people are able to take the reins, sometimes that helps, and then the pressure is not. But basically, no matter who you are, trained in whatever, there are going to be flare-ups of, like, you know, we want to get it right, and so we have to kind of manage our own emotions around not getting it right sometimes.
And I'm just going to put out there the correct answer. As you said, you gave the real answer. But the correct answer can also be the real answer, which is that often men do want to be told, because it's so much easier than playing in the dark. So if they could be told how to touch you, harder or softer, more precious, sweetheart, and it's also about how you tell them. You know, it's also about, you know, that feels good, and it would feel so much more delicious if you would sink your teeth right there, and giving them that invitation to do more, always with the starting with the sweetness, right? Not like, "Shit, you're doing this all wrong. I'm so done here. Why can't you touch me right?" Instead of trying that, you know, trying the, that's really, that feels kind of okay. And I would really love it if you scratched me there. And then giving them like big clapping for when they're getting it right, giving them big clapping with your sounds. So maybe it's hard for you to say, but with moaning or growing, I say thank you a lot. I go, you know, please, more, and thank you. I do that, you know, a great deal in session. There's a question.
Yeah, I'd love to take a crack at that one too.
Yeah, go for it. Read it out loud.
So it says, "My husband says I'm trying to control him when I ask for specific things. I am not sure how to respond or what to do. Any thoughts?" And so I would say, absolutely. Just tell him, "Yes, I want to control you right now." Right? And that's fine. Just like, you know, there's a couple things. There's lots of different ways to engage, and there are lots of different people. And so you put those things together, two people together with different ways to engage, and there's a lot of different outcomes, right? So your husband might be someone that when he's in arousal, if you're giving direction while he's in arousal, it might pull him out of arousal. So you have to kind of understand that, okay, well, when I give direction, we might need to pop out, talk about something, and then pop back in, right? And he might think, "Oh, you're trying to control me. Who is this for?" Right? So that's a big question, is when making love, who is this for? Sometimes you're serving your partner. Sometimes your partner's serving you. Sometimes you're in this sweet spot where you're both just taking whatever you want from each other and communicating openly. And that's just like, that's a really high level, beautiful interaction that's not always available to us all the time. Sometimes you have to stop. And I would say in this particular case, you'd have a conversation with your husband before you were in arousal and just say, hey, I want to explore my best ever sex life with you. And I just want to be able to give you some directions. Would you be willing to try this with me? Would you be willing to play this game? And it doesn't mean I don't love how you touch me. It means I just want to try this other thing. And it'll be, and then you might offer the same. You might say, okay, and now let's play that game with you, because then you'll also see how it feels in your body. And then you'll be on in this equal playing field. And then you can say, once we both know what we want, then we'll dive into this mutual, like, taking extravaganza. That's like I said, what I call the sweet spot. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I love that. And I also was looking at the language that, like Wendy just posted here. Maybe it's the fear of rejection, or perhaps fear of creating conflict with partner by setting them up for not doing it right. So I think you have to take that out completely, the you're not doing it right language.
Mm-hmm.
And, it would, and bring in the more better. Oh my God, it's so much more better when you hold me that way, and really letting your guy or your partner know when they are doing the things you love. Because if you let them know that they've got the right spot, like, stay there, baby, stay there. That's so good. I am loving that. Please don't move. Oh my God, don't move. If you would tell them not to move, they won't move. Otherwise, what tends to happen is that they're like roading around in your vulva, okay, trying to find the right spot in your vulva, the right speed. And we are, women, much harder to read than a man's body. Because men's bodies are kind of all up there and out there, right? There it is. There's the erect penis most of the time, right? It gets harder, it gets softer. When there's an ejaculation with an orgasm, we kind of, as women, we kind of know, oh, he's coming. Oh, look, he came. With us, it's kind of hard. The guy is in there like, oh, okay, if I do this and if I do that and maybe this is good and I don't know, I'll do this. And so, really offering them directions with your pleasure sound and really telling them, I notice even sometimes with vibrators, like there's this big hunkin' vibrator, right? And the dude, instead of just putting the vibrator on the vulva, it's like watching the cha-cha-cha. Vibrator, 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 vibrator. And it's like it doesn't give the body a chance. But they have to feel like they're doing something because they can't really see what's happening for us in our bodies. So we sort of have to be a little bit of a orgasm support animal for our partner and telling them to stay or, that's closer. I'm seeing comments. So many times, so you're loving the language, Stacy, that's great. I don't think puppy will get good results. Good puppy. Me. Okay, got it. Sorry. So many times faking it to get through. All I did was shortchange myself. He thought he was doing it right. Exactly. He thought he was doing it right. And so we want to actually give them the reinforcement that they are doing it right. And so there's some ways. Breath, right? So you want to give an example of happy breath? Yeah.
Or
that's good. That's good, right? Deep sigh is like, oh, baby, that's even voice and breath. Like I did a combo. Oh, baby, that's so good, right? Oh, yes, like sounds, words, movement.
Mm-hmm.
Movements, like how are you moving your body? Are you showing excitement? Are
And
you
if you're not someone that moves, then your words will have to be the thing that shows. Because some people really like, I don't want to move. I just want to feel it all in one place. And
the
so,
clenchers?
yeah, or just like, yeah, I really want to feel that. And then it's like, if you didn't say anything, no one would know that you weren't like asleep.
Right. And so some of the tools that we're offering you here, why women, how to help close the orgasm gap and why straight women finish last, is that we tend not to be self-seekers.
Mm.
We tend not to ask for the best piece of crap, right? We don't claim the amount of time that we need for our arousal. We don't offer direction because we're frightened of hurting somebody's feelings. We don't offer our partner clues like breath or sound or movement, or even like moving their hand, or bringing the toys that we want to the party. And so starting to incorporate some of these tools will help you close the orgasm gap for yourself or for your partner. Do you have any more thoughts on that, Cosmo?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have so many because it's just, it's such a juicy topic because it overflows into the rest of life too. So it's not, what we deal with in the bedroom, it's one of the most challenging things emotionally because it is so tender. So it's something that, once we address there, and I like the words, Mr. Rogers, he has this saying, and I know everyone's laughing going, Mr. Rogers, what are you talking about?
Mr.
But
Rogers.
if you haven't seen that movie, watch it, because he actually, it's very interesting the way he talks, and it reminds me of the work we do. It's just like so caring and so tender. But what he says is, whatever is mentionable is manageable,
Exactly.
right? Which means if we're not talking about it, it's just sometimes can feel overwhelmingly unmanageable. And as soon as we
Exactly.
talk about it, it becomes, yeah, for lack of a better word, manageable. Just like, oh, it's out there now. Okay, now we have to, talk about it. And like, talking about it outside of arousal, I think is a really key point. And that's something that people think, okay, when we're going to have sex and then, we don't want to ruin the mood. So we just don't talk about things, don't set parameters, don't talk about agreements, don't talk about what we want today or what we don't want. And the truth is, you know, my partner can say, 1 minute it could be like, I just want something very slowly and very tender, and then move into something very vigorous. And I would have no idea that transition, that it was ready, like time for that transition, unless I was cued. And so, but we have an open dialogue. So you have to kind of create a foundation with your partner where there's a dialogue available.
Right.
And sometimes doing that outside of erotic space is where you need to start. So you say, hey, honey, person, human, whoever you're in contact with, can we just like have a fun, possibly triggering conversation about
Right.
sex?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I got a question that said, well, how do you build up the self-confidence to do this? And so, it takes practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to mention, Cosmo, right here, that people are at home. Most of us are at home, isolating, hitting like the pause button on life. And
Mm.
we're doing something unique right now that you're participating in, Cosmo, at Back to the Body, which is we're offering, like most of the world right now, we're trying to lift some of the treasures and pearls that happen at Back to the Body into an online mentorship program for people. And that could be one of the ways that you can develop these skills and these self-confidence. And what makes this program like different than other programs is that we are using what's known as a triadic model, which is how we work at Back to the Body at the retreats, where the practitioners like Cosmo work with people like me, or Stephanie Joe or Christy and the other women as a sisterhood to work through and develop erotic self-confidence and to work these skills. And so in this mentorship program, and the gates are going to close on it on April 15th. We're doing a short group. And already we have like 25 or 30 women registered for this, Cosmo. And
Exciting.
it is exciting. Each woman will have 1 hour one-on-one with me, and then once a month, and then an hour one-on-one with one of our Back to the Body practitioners, such as you, Cosmo, where they could practice, like pretending that you're their partner, where they can practice these skills, where they can talk about these things with a female person and a male person. And then they get the benefit of all the practitioners coming together with me and the safe words, talking about what's going on with all of you. And we will do a monthly group meeting. And we have this thing called a nest at the retreats where the women can just, after the sessions, they can just sort of dump into and collapse. And we're creating a virtual nest. So after sessions, they can go and share about their feelings, about their sessions, and about what's happening for them and their, I hate homework, their home play assignments. And I hope that people take a look at that. And Stephanie, if you would also put up your calendar, your phone number, your email. So if you want to talk about how you can do this at home, how you practice, how you develop these skill sets. This is a very special program that, sometimes it takes a pandemic. Sometimes it just takes a pandemic. What's true is that we should have been offering this all along. For new clients, for clients that have been with us, for clients that are taking a break, so they can stay in and continue to practice all these skills at home and have the support. And so, it took a pandemic, and now we're doing it. And we have room for a few more women. Then, as I said, we're closing the doors on April 15th. So I hope you'll explore it, because I think that this is an ongoing conversation. There's so much more. There's so much practice that you can be doing virtually with practitioners, with me as the visionary behind all of this. And it's something that you can do from home for not a ton of money. And really go deeper into your own orgasm gap. And work one-on-one with a practitioner virtually about how to develop a pleasure practice. And
I like that term.
Learning how to breathe and practice communicating, role playing, Cosmo or any of the other wonderful, extraordinary male sex educators that we have, let them play act your partner with you and say, well, you're trying to control me. And have you have the conversation with them and see how you are able to handle that. I think it's time to close the orgasm gap.
Yeah, beautiful.
And
so
yeah,
so just around the gaining the confidence, this is a big piece, and this is something that I just you wish for people to have the confidence earlier in life, right? To just have more time. I mean, I wish that I had, learned what I know now 20 years ago. I just wish it would have been so great. It would have been so great
to have this longer,
to have this longer. And I'm just glad that I have it now, and that's what I would just say to everyone, is that there is some type of personal rock bottom erotically we have to hit before we're willing to stand up and disrupt our life to some degree. Not completely.
Oh, right. You don't have to burn. Right. You don't have to burn down your house.
It all down.
Right.
But just there is something where you're saying, this part of me is important enough to be mentionable.
Exactly.
This is important enough to be part of defining who I am in relationship to the world. You know, it's important enough to set aside time for every day,
And
or
money
at least,
and
money or
resources,
resources.
all the
Yeah,
things that we do. Where are you willing to be a self-seeker?
yeah.
Are you willing to give this to yourself even now in a time of uncertainty? What should we be the most certain of? And I think it's our embodiment.
Mm,
And I think it's when we can dip into our pleasure, when we can understand our body, then anything can happen for us because then we're full of creativity. When you say you have low libido, what you're also saying is I have low energy. What you're also saying is I have low desire, that I have low creativity, that that I am tamped down in some way. And I am telling you, I am swearing to you that you can turn that around. And I hope that you will join us for our next call. Cosmo is doing a series with me. I hope you consider the mentorship program. Look at the retreats. Our retreats are resuming in June. We are resuming in June. Um, upstate New York, and then Santa Fe, New Mexico,
mhm.
and then Maui, where I am now, which is an extraordinary place. By the way, Maui has Hawaii as a state has one of the lowest incidences of the virus. So it's if you have a lot of concern around that. But in any place that we go to, we're very isolated. We're not in metropolitan areas. We invite the women to come in to our retreat center. We're no longer asking you to go to a hotel. Come right to the retreat center. We pop you right into isolation, even if you don't need to be in isolation anymore. That's just how we're doing things now, and we're trying to bring you some of the gems and some of the pearls of Back to the Body into your living room, virtually through free calls like this, and also through programs like our mentorship program. Cosmo, you are such a joy.
Thanks, Pamela. I looked over the attendees, and I'm noticing that there's two men in the group, which I haven't noticed in our webinars. And so that's another way, and one of them is one of our Apollo men. And so just, that's another way, that's a possibility of bridging this gap, is like talking to your partners and being like, hey, you want to watch a webinar with me?
Right.
And check it out. Like, it's, there's two of us sitting here.
Show your partner this webinar.
Yeah, this is
It's
not just for women. This is not a webinar just for women, and this is not a
sure.
problem that's just a women's problem. And I
Mm-hmm.
also love you
Mm-hmm.
to bits, Pamela, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, and Dana is asking Stephanie Joe, would you repost one more time the direct link to the mentorship program and to the website? If you just like pop all the links one more time,
Boom,
including the
boom, boom.
Apollo project, just one more time. If you would just do that again. So for people who don't, and you could also scroll up, but I understand that tonight these webinars get confusing. So we'll give it a minute for Stephanie Joe to repost all of her links. She thought she was done. All of her links one more time, so that you all can find them. And we are not all, Cosmos in Canada, but Stephanie Joe and I are together in Maui, different time zone. And we basically work all the time. So please feel free to email, to set up an appointment. We're happy to talk with you, because I don't think there's anything, I think we're an essential service.
Yeah.
I think, embodiment, okay. My breasts are being admired, as well as the mangoes in the background. Thank you, Stacy, for that. And I think on that note, do we have? I'm now embarrassed.
That
I
takes a
think
lot too.
right. It takes a lot. So, but you know what about that? I mean, I'm willing to be seen, And that takes an erotic confidence. And that takes a sexual self-confidence. And I'm not a young kid, and I'm not someone's perfect size. Whatever that is, for maybe I'm somebody's perfect size, but you know, you can develop these tools to be self-confident and where you can feel sexy in your body and turned on and creative all the time. And I hope that this was helpful for that. So thank you. As we say, hands together, deep bow. Thank you for coming. All
Thanks,
right,
everyone.
Cosmo. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Pamela.